Nice to see everybody.
Look at that.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Ruby, and I'm the director of the CFJ Coaching Success School. And I want to welcome all of you to the Create Your Own 2019 Now webinar. And I have the distinct honor of introducing you to Carolyn Freyer-Jones. So some of you may know Carolyn, and some of you may not. So I just want to take a minute here to introduce you to her. I've known Carolyn now for over 20 years. Yes, we met when we were 12. No, just joking. Carolyn and I have worked together at the University of Santa Monica, where we both received our master's degrees in spiritual psychology. And we also lived next door to each other for 10 years. I've watched her grow her coaching practice from one of coaching people in her car, in the carport of our apartment building, where we live so she could have privacy, to leaving her secure job at the University of Santa Monica, where she worked there for 10 years as the director of admissions, to starting her full-time coaching practice. And she left in 2010 to start her full-time coaching practice and her business partnership with her beloved best friend and business partner, Michelle Bauman. And Michelle passed away in 2015. Carolyn has also developed and taught at the University of Santa Monica's Soul Center coaching program with Steve Chandler, Stephen McGee, who are both on faculty at the CFJ Coaching Success School, Michelle Bauman, and Drs. Ron and Mary Hallnick from 2012 to 2017. When Carolyn left her job at USM, she made the commitment to herself she would earn at a minimum what she earned during her previous year at USM. By the end of her first year, she not only achieved her goal, but her income increased by over 35%. And since 2010, Carolyn has been a consistent multiple six-figure earner. And today she will share how she's been able to do that for herself, but most importantly, how she's been able to do it for hundreds and hundreds of coaches since that time and doing the same thing for themselves too. So without further ado, let's get this webinar started. Here's Carolyn Freyer-Jones.
Hey, everybody. I am so excited to be here with you all. This is so fun. It's so fun to see all of you popping up, many of you who I know and many who I don't. So welcome. I'm going to take a couple minutes. I'm going to introduce one more person, and then I promise you we're going to get to beyond introducing into the purpose of today. So I get to introduce to you one of the primary faculty of the CFJ Coaching Success School. She is an extraordinary product of coaching herself. And I think that's really important for all of us to note, because one of the questions I often get asked is like, what matters as a coach? And to me, one of the things that matters most is being a product of coaching. I am a product of coaching. Amber is a product of coaching. Every person on faculty at the coaching school is a product of coaching. Amber is a University of Santa Monica graduate as well. She comes from the background of professional theater and musical theater, and then she left that world and earned her master's degree at USM, and then launched herself into the world of coaching and found herself sitting with Michelle Bauman. And Michelle adored Amber from afar. In fact, Michelle made it very clear to me, don't go near her. I want Amber. And Amber became a client of Michelle's, and she became a client of both of ours. She did a small group with us. And Amber, since then, has become a very successful coach. She not only coaches individuals, but she's done lots of work with coaches in her own small groups for coaches. She takes such a stand for this profession, for coaches really learning how to be with people and connect. And she has her own great story about her own journey in coaching. So Amber, do you just want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited for today. Thank you, Carolyn, for that lovely introduction.
So you're going to get to hear from Amber. I will make sure you guys will hear from her and her own experience. And I want to talk about what today's about. So my intention and our intention is that we deliver on what we wrote about when we talked about the webinar. And that means we're going to deliver on you getting to start co-creating your 2019. And we're also going to deliver on what does it really mean to be a successful coach in terms of what does a successful coach's day look like every day? What does it mean to really slow down and connect with people? Is it possible to build a coaching practice without selling? And why does it look like on Facebook that other coaches are so radically successful and I might be feeling like I'm not doing it right? So we're going to talk about that. And some of you are here because you are thinking about attending the CFJ Coaching Success School. So there's going to be time. I'm going to open it up to questions. You can ask a question about anything you want related to your own coaching. And if you have a question about the school, we'll answer those as well. So I think we should just get going. I want to start with talking about one thing, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. I want to talk about 2019 because to me, the thing that I see coaches make errors in, and this is true of both newer coaches and more seasoned coaches sometimes, is we do not actually do anything to create our year. And what I mean by that, and Steve Chandler, who's on faculty at the school, I love how he says this. He's like, we don't want to react to our year, right? 6 months in, I can't tell you how many coaches will be like, oh my God, 2019 is half over and I'm not making the kind of money I want. I'm not working with the kind of clients I want. So the fact that you're here on this call says a lot, because I admire coaches who want to slow down and be like, what do I want in my 2019? Because part of being a successful coach is deciding what you want your year to look like. Truly, slowing down. How many clients do I want to work with? What do I want to make? What do I want to do that's new? Now, deciding what you want your 2019 to look like does not equal it will look like that. Because in terms of the way that I work and the way that Michelle and I and our careers unfolded, and I know I can speak for Amber, is all of us were very intentional in the kind of year we wanted to create year after year. And we have a lot of room for letting things unfold, right? So I'm not rigid about my numbers. I'm not rigid about, like, I'll have an idea, like I want this many clients, I want to make this much money. When Michelle and I were starting, we would do what we call ideal scenes, which is something you learn at the University of Santa Monica. And then we would really allow it to unfold. But I will say this, we participated a lot. I was just listening to Michelle last night in an audio that she did with Steve about coaches. And she said, Steve asked her, well, what do you look for in coaches? And she said, I learned early on in my coaching of coaches, not everyone is as enthusiastic and as willing to work as much as I was. So I look for people who are willing to work really hard. I look for that. I want that. I want coaches who are hungry. And that's something I can say for me. Coaches who are hungry, who are willing to get messy and get in there and talk to people and mess it up and talk again, that's where progress is made. That's where progress is made. So why don't we do this? Let's open it up to a question. So you can, if I'm accurate, you should be able to like raise your hand virtually and I can see you. So I'm looking at the list. If you have a question that you want to ask, there's a little feature where you can raise your hand. Look for it. I'm scanning for a hand. Amy, I'm not seeing any hands. Are you?
Oh, Amy's muted.
She's muted.
So Kendra just said, it's the button at the bottom of the list. Thank you, Kendra.
Well, what I'm going to do while people figure that out, I already have a question that I was sent and I want to talk about it because it's from the fantastic Sarah Goodson, who sent me a question in advance. And I love this question. The question is, for a completely new coach, how would they go about choosing their fee? So I'll repeat that question. For a completely new coach, how would a coach go about choosing their fee? So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the school is about fees, right? Every single coach I know, especially if you're at the newer end of the spectrum, wants to know, how do we choose a fee? And I want to lay it out for people. I will never, ever tell someone what their fee should be. Nobody I know who coaches in the way that I do and works with them tells someone what their fee should be. Because choosing your fee, in a way, in and of itself is a milestone. It's like a way to really go, I'm strong enough inside that I'm going to pick a number. And the thing about our fees is they're going to evolve. They're not going to stay the same. They don't. So I encourage coaches to start with a number you can say without gagging, right? Without feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to vomit in front of the person talking to me if I say this number. If that's the response inside, probably not the right number for you. We want you to be able to say your fee like you say your phone number, like you tell people your email address. You don't cringe when we give people our email addresses. So you don't want to cringe when you say your fee. Your fee is not a bad piece of news to tell someone. So my encouragement to people is pick a number. Start with a number you can feel good about. That's it. And the only person who knows that is you. And I know that's not always an answer people like. People are like, can't you just give us like a system where you go, new coaches charge this much? And I don't do that. And it's really important as part of your development as a coach that you determine your fee and know that it will evolve. And you're going to know, because as you coach more, you're going to have this experience where you go, oh my God, it's time to raise my fees. I'm seeing the value people are getting, and you're going to know that. Do you want to say anything else about that, Amber, about fees and your own experience?
I just want to echo what Carolyn says. It's really easy to, in this world of online and social media, it's easy to look out there and see what everybody else is doing. And it's your own honesty inside of yourself. There's no shame. We all start somewhere. I mean, I remember when I first started, after I enrolled, like my game was, once I enroll one person at this rate, I'm going to bump it up by, $500 or $1,000. And then the next person that I enrolled at that rate, like I just played a game of that just to grow and strengthen my own confidence in myself, in my enrollment. And then again, you'll see the results in your clients, and that will help strengthen your capacity to raise.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I have seen with coaches and their fees is that because you can always go up, it's great to take your time. There are coaches who will jump, right, to a higher fee, and then they'll find that they're not enrolling as many people into their practice. And often that's a sign of scale it back, lower your fees a bit. And fees are not a referendum on who you are. So that's another thing that we really establish in the school. It's like who you are and your fees are completely separate, because who you are, your infinite worth and value, that's a non-issue. Your fees don't mean anything. If your fees are lower because you're starting, that doesn't mean you're a bad or lesser coach. And high fees don't always mean you're the best coach on the block. I mean, often your fees are simply an indicator of where you are inside in your own confidence. I remember a coaching group that Michelle and I were running, a small group, and we had 9 coaches. And we had 2 people flying out from England to be in our small group. And one of them was a more seasoned coach. And we had a woman in the school who was a young, ambitious coach. And we came to meet, and she shared her win. I think she'd either just hit 6 figures or she made her fee $10,000. And the other coach was outraged. Amber's laughing because I think she remembers she was in the group. He was so bothered, and he turned to us and he said, how is it possible? I have a question. How is it possible that she's making more, that her fees are higher? How is that possible? And we said, wow, that is a great question. What's your answer? And he sat there and he said, is it, and he came up with all these answers, and we were like, no. He had all these very intelligent thoughts, and we said, no. And he's like, I don't know, just because she's got more guts. And we were like, That was it. And it was a fantastic moment, because being in a group with coaches, it can be very inspiring to see someone who may be quote unquote lesser experienced, but they're willing. It's like we learn so much from each other when we're in a room and someone's like, I just got a client, and we collapse inside. And then we can go, well, wait a second. Am I really going to let that collapse me, or am I going to let that inspire me? Because that's the that's the tone that I set and that we set with coaches. There are infinite clients. This is not a lose-lose scenario. If someone else gets a client, it doesn't mean I've lost. It doesn't mean there's less for me. And often in the profession of coaching, there's a lot of jockeying for position. If you notice on Facebook, it can be a real way to use it as a weapon. Oh, they're doing so well, or they look like they're doing well. It means less for me. And that's not a place to be in this profession, because we really want to come from when one person progresses, we all progress. The profession moves forward every time one of us gets a great client. The whole profession. Do you want to say anything, Amber, about that?
I was distracted with letting people in. So
thank you.
Yeah.
How do we? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? I'm still. Since I can't see any hands raised for whatever.
There is a hand raise.
There is?
Yeah.
Why don't we? Do you want to call on them?
Sure.
Okay.
It's Debbie.
All right.
So I will. Oh, I just lost her when I put her hand down. Debbie, where did you go?
So exciting.
Okay. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I just unmuted myself. Hi. So I am already going to your school, and I'm very.
Yes, you are.
And I'm really excited about it. And just, if I just may say, just a quick plug, like I've already gotten, I've already gotten so much just from, like we've already done a few calls like this and the private Facebook group, and I'm launching my own group now. And like, I already feel like I got my money's worth. So it'll be interesting to see like what happens when the school starts. I just want to say that. Okay, so I do have, I'd like some coaching, and if this isn't the forum for this, this is fine by me. So I'm doing a new group, Self-Forgiveness and Money, and just honestly, like, excuse me, but like the shit hit the fan for me yesterday. Like I started putting out a blog, Money Mondays. I interviewed Amy Ruby on her, successes around money, and, how she dealt with the limiting beliefs that came up and used self-forgiveness, etc. And this is all so new for me. And I just started thinking like, honestly, like, am I really prepared to do this? Like, I know I could do something like self-forgiveness in the body. I've done that. Like, I know I can do, I know you're smiling, Carolyn, but seriously, it's like, because I'm still like on my edge, like my fees are somewhat low, which I'm okay. Like, I'm okay with where my fees are. And there's one more thing is like, maybe it's just sharing, like I do have a lot of background in self-forgiveness, and I really have I'm doing well financially. And I've got a lot of tools, and maybe I just share where I don't need to pretend to be like someone I'm not. Like, I'm like, should I put off, or like, should I maybe start the group in May once I've been in, April, May, once I've been in the school for a little while, like all of these things are going through my head. Am I really prepared to do it? And up until now, like, it's like I've shared and coached from my own experience, and I just want to keep doing that and stay on my cutting edge. So just if you have any coaching on that, like I've had conversations with some people that like I've hesitated as far as like really just putting it out, like talking to people and having conversation, so it's like something is hesitating in me.
So I appreciate what you're asking, Debbie, and I'm going to create a larger context because for everybody.
Yeah, sure.
For me, the thing you're speaking to is so common in our growth as a coach. Okay. So here's Debbie, who's, let's say you're on the newer end of coaching, not brand new, but newer, and she's put in motion a group that she wants to launch, right? And now what I hear, and you can tell me if I'm accurate, Debbie, is it's getting uncomfortable. Like, oh my God, and all these thoughts are like, do I really have what it takes to do this group? Am I really going to do it? And I want to say to everybody, like, that's so natural. Like, I have that. And I've been coaching for 15 plus years. There are still moments where I'm like, ooh, do I know what I'm doing? Amber has that. Amy has that. Part of this profession, which I love, is that it brings up these places inside that are like, oh my God, do I have what it takes to do this? And the reason I think it's so valuable is, you know, Steve Chandler jokes about this, and he'll talk about this when he comes and teaches at the school. Like, we don't know if accountants feel that way in their profession, right? Do accountants ever have moments where they're like, ooh, do I have what it takes? But as professional coaches, given it comes from, it's like most of us have had some experience with personal growth. That's why we do this. It's going to touch on the places inside that we're like, wow, we're stretching. And the reason it's so valuable is because that's what we're asking our clients to do. That's the main reason. It's like, are we willing to consider that the very thing we're uncomfortable about stretching into, we're going to then turn around and encourage our clients to stretch? So I don't have an answer for you, Debbie, as to like, should you do it now or should you do it later? Like, to me, that's a personal decision. Yeah. And I trust your own sense of that. However, I know many coaches who have wanted to wait until they were ready. And you can wait a really long time. And I remember Michelle and I had a conversation with some coaches, and Michelle's comment was, if we all waited till we were ready, nobody would be doing this. Nobody would be in this profession, because it's not a requirement. All we have to be able to do is to help people. Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. I don't need to like come up with a cure for a new kind of water. I just need to have water. That's it. So we don't have to be like, that's it. All we need to do is, if you know that you can help people, Debbie, and I have a sense that you know that you can.
Yeah, it's funny. Just one other observation is, I'm aware that probably the cutting edge for me in regards to money is really knowing my own value. And like,
so can I want to pause that. Can I give you something on that?
Yeah.
See, that's us knowing our own value and moving forward are separate. Because in a way, everybody on the planet, right, is dealing with varying levels of their own illusions of their unworthiness. They are, and that's an illusion. When I was listening to the audio of Michelle last night, Steve said to her, well, what do you do when you have a coach who's saying that they're feeling unworthy? And Michelle said, look, the first thing I say to a coach is, well, we know that that's an illusion. It's an illusion. Now, because of my education at USM, I take a stand for people doing their own inner work. But I also say that's a way to keep yourself out of the game.
Yeah, I hear that. Like, and I'm really willing. I just want to say, like, in front of all these awesome people, like, I'm really willing. Yeah. Like, I'm really willing. So we'll see
I applaud you, Debbie. And I also applaud all of the coaches here. And one of the things I want to say, and then Amber is going to speak to this, I want to say that, like, it's really important, if you haven't yet, to sit down and go, okay, what's the number I want to have in my 2019? Like, what do I want to make? Like, that's an important number. I can't tell you how many coaches I know, not only do they not identify a number they want to make, anytime someone comes to work with me or is in my school or any group I do, I say to them, what did you make last year? Usually half of the coaches are like, I don't know. They're like, la, 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 I don't want to know. And I require them. You have to go back. Like, if we're going to do this as a profession, professionals know how much they've made. So if you don't know yet what you made in 2018, you want to make that happen, and you want to identify where do you want to go in 2019. And you can stretch. It's like in the world of the University of Santa Monica, the phrase we use is it can be 50% believable or 50% unbelievable. So if you don't do anything from this call, if only you said, I'm going to identify how much I made in 2018 and I'm going to identify how much I want to make in 2019, that would be a great thing to do. All right. So Debbie, thank you. Amber, can you talk a little bit about this thing of, like, why does it look like so many other coaches are making more money than me?
Oh, sure. I love this topic. Because the world that we live in is, if you open your Instagram or if you open your Facebook, it's like, I made 7 figures in 2 minutes. Like that's the world that we're in. And it can feel I mean, I still have moments where I have to unfollow people or put my phone down because we're human. And part of being human, we're going to have moments of insecurity. We're going to have moments of doubt. We're going to have moments that are challenging where we're not making what we thought we would make, or we're not enrolling like we thought we would. And then, and then that can steamroll into, oh gosh, I mean, just periods of time of inaction. And that's what we want to avoid. So step one is to, if you can, remove the trigger. If that means unsubscribe from someone's list. Here's what I'll say. So when I first started my coaching practice, I leaned in towards the online realm. And I had an awesome website. It's not the website I have now, but it looked great. I had $44,000 in credit card debt. See, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that happens in the online world. It's easy to have something look pretty. It just is. There are coaches who have $1 million businesses who are running in the red because they're outsourcing so much and they're not bringing enough in to provide. Now, I think a bigger part of this, I'll say one other thing. I had a conversation once with a coach who had over 30,000 followers on Instagram. She has a highly successful podcast. She gets, New York Times bestselling authors as her guests on her show. She wasn't even making $100,000 in her business. It's like, how does that happen? Right? So if you're looking out there and you're thinking, oh, this person is successful because they have X amount of followers or have 1 million downloads on their podcast, that's not necessarily accurate. The last thing that I'll say that is the most important piece, where you want to go is inside, meaning I listened to this podcast called Making Oprah, and she talks about the success of the Oprah Winfrey Show. And I think it's the second episode where she talks about her producers on the show started to look outside at ratings of other shows and look outside at, well, they had this guest, maybe we should go in that path. And Oprah continued to say, don't look out, look in. Who are we? What do we want to do? Where am I right now? What is most meaningful for me? What brings me the most joy? That's where you want to keep coming back to. Your blossoming will unfold. It's just those moments when you drop into comparison. It's just really the invite to come back home to yourself. That's what I'll say. That's the whole big spiel.
I love it. In a moment, I'm going to call on you, Farnaz. I want to give you a heads up. And I just want to say something about what you said, Amber. I love what you said. I think it's really important. And I think it's important as in this profession. So first of all, you all can't see how many of you are participating right now, but I will let you know, not surprising, right? The majority of the people on this call and in the field of coaching are women, right? It's a female-dominated profession, although there's plenty of men. It's more dominated by women. And I think it's really important to note that because, look, women, we have a lot of socializing around like, be nice on the outside, but inside maybe will not be as generous with other women. And maybe there's sort of a culture of not really having space for us to each grow in our own success and our own leadership. And I think that's important to note because when you look out in the world of social media, it can be very, as Amber said, deceptive. And it also, by the way, any time we spend on social media, we are not talking to people. So for those of you that are new to the work that I do and the school, this is a place where we learn how to talk to people to grow our business. Coaches don't get clients from websites. You can have the best website. Amber has a fabulous website, and she'll be the first to say, that's not how I get my clients. I get my clients through talking to people, through connecting, through slowing down. So it's really important to know that any time you spend on social media looking at what people are doing is time taking away from your own business, away from your ability to connect with people. So Farnaz, I'm going to unmute. I'm going to lower your hand and unmute you. Oh, you went away because I unmuted you. Oh.
I muted myself. How's that? Hello, everybody. I have two questions. The first one is quick. I may not be able to make it till the end of the call. I just wanted to know where you will include the dates for your school, how to register, and like what happens if you miss a weekend, because I wasn't able to find it through the emails when I on the school for some reason. So as long as I know you're going to include that somewhere, then I don't have that question anymore.
Was there another question too, Farnaz?
Well, a quick one. The second one is, I know that you have 6 months of teaching for this kind of work. So it's not like it's a quick one tip answer. But if you could condense it into one tip, what would be your one tip to turning a conversation into a paying client without sounding like a used car salesman?
Yes. Well, I love that question. So first of all, let me handle the other piece. If you go to the school website and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll find the dates. But Farnaz, what we'll do is when we're done with the call, Amy will send you an email with the information that you want. So it'll have the dates. It'll have, what was your other question about the school? Oh, if you miss a weekend. Right. So we'll handle that. So I appreciate that. And I want you to know, so everybody knows, because maybe that's a question, a burning question, is if you come to my school, we will look at exceptions if you absolutely need to miss a weekend. We will make it up. We will do a private call with you. And there has to be a real, like, the reason has to be like, not because, I don't know, you're going to a spa. It has to be like, we have someone who's going to a wedding and someone who has a bat mitzvah. So those kinds of things. So we can talk with you about
overseas. Good enough.
Exactly. But let's go to your other question. So I love that you asked it, and you're right. It's not a fast answer. One of the things about having someone go from a conversation to a client is what happens in the conversation. So what I mean by that, Farnaz, and for everyone, people hire us because of something that happens inside of them when they're with us. It happens because when they sit with us, they have an experience of, oh my God, this person just said something to me that was, I've never heard before, that just changed my life. Or, and this is an important or, and, I've never had anybody listen to me this way, ever. I've never felt so heard and so seen, such that I want to be with this person more. Like I know that if I'm with this person more is going to occur for me. So the way someone becomes a client is because of what happens inside of that container that is created with that other person. And that's part of the reason why this is an art. It's not a science. You know, it's not like look, I admire any coach, but that's why when we see all those things on Facebook, get clients in 6 easy steps. And it's not for the kind of coaching where we're really working with someone in their lives deeply. It's like, I remember I had one of my first clients who I knew I wanted. So early on, Michelle and I identified people we would love to coach. And that's something we're going to be doing in this school. It's not just about waiting for people to come to us. It's like we can look out into our world and go, who out there do I already know, not Oprah, that I know personally that I would love to coach? And there was a guy I really wanted to coach. He was the owner of a business that I frequented. And I really liked him. I liked who he was as a leader. I liked him, but I knew that there was something that could occur between us. And I remember Michelle said to me, what makes you think you can help him? And my answer was, he has a lot in his toolkit, but he doesn't have what I experienced as a deep sense of compassion for himself and others. He didn't know what that was like. So I invited him to come sit with me, and I booked a 3-hour conversation. 3 hours. Because I know the longer I sit with someone, the higher the likelihood is they're going to convert to a client. And I have coaches be like, what on God's green earth did you do for 3 hours? And it's a great question. But in the course of that conversation, we were looking at something in his business. And he was having a challenge with a colleague. And I said, who does that colleague remind you of in your life? Like, who in your earlier life? And he sat there and he was like, oh my God, he's like my dad. And I said, how is he like your dad? And he listed all the ways he's like my dad. And he's like, oh my God. And there were a number of things going on in the relationship that weren't working. He's like, I'm going to have to talk to him. I don't know if we can work together. I don't know. And he looked at me and all he said was, how do we do this? How do we do this? You just handled something in my business that I've been dealing with for over a year with that one question. How do we do this? Mm-hmm. I didn't have to have like and then I say this and then he says that. It was like I was able to slow down and be with him and really tune into my own questions of what would serve him. Because really great coaching has a lot to do with what are the questions we're asking. Are we asking deep enough questions? Is that helpful, Farnaz?
Yes, very. Thank you.
I so appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I saw, it looks like Kendra, I saw you had a question. Amy or Amber, if you can call on Kendra. Kendra, there she is.
I just unmuted you, Kendra.
All right.
Hi. How are you?
Kendra, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you. Nice to meet you in person.
Yes.
I just wanted to say to anyone on the phone that's considering the school, I had one really beautiful conversation with Carolyn after meeting her through Steve Chandler. And just from that conversation alone, I've enrolled 4 clients.
Yeah. Good job. Way to go, Kendra.
And I do train, and I do literally, I know it's from that conversation. So really beautiful to meet you in person.
Work, Kendra.
My question is on pricing. So if we feel like we've passed that, I just wanted to ask your perspective on something, but I don't want to hold the group up. So
tell me, no, go ahead. It's okay.
Well, something that has really been profound for me in the last few weeks, especially since we spoke, was that I've started to realize that the pricing is less about me feeling my worth and capability, and it's more about their worth, their perceived worth. And I'd like any thoughts on that, or if there is that, because it kind of released me from that pressure. Like, can I give $10,000 or $15,000 worth of coaching? Like, am I responsible for the outcome and all that stuff that comes up with it? And it's like, are they worth it? Like, it's about them, not me, right?
Well, I love what you're talking about. And you can tell me, Kendra, if what I'm going to say is accurate. I think what you're talking about is this idea that, like, when someone is going to invest in coaching, they are deciding, is what I want to create worth it? Is it worth the investment to me? So when a coach's fees, to me, anytime a coach is up above $2,500, because I remember when I charged $2,500 for 6 months, and by the way, that's a lot of money. Like, it's still a lot of money to me. I'm like, but let's just start there. It's like, I have to ask myself, as the person about to make the investment, is what I want from this experience worth that much to me, right? So it's like when your fees are $10,000 and I'm going to say, I want to increase my business, or, Steve Chandler will often talk about if someone has a ruptured relationship with their son or their daughter, it's like, what is it worth it to them? What's worth it to them to repair that, to learn how to repair that? Now, that's a question only an individual can answer, right? Because I could say, well, it'd be worth it to me to repair my relationship with my daughter. I'd pay $50,000 to learn how to do that. Someone else may not. I remember once my brother, who is a consumer of my coaching, by the way, he's a financial advisor. And I said to him, look, there's a coach I know who charges $150,000 for 1 year. And he said, who would pay $150,000 for a year? He's like, there is nothing I would pay $150,000 for a year. I'm like, well, clearly you're not his client. But there are people who do. And there's a reality to the investment is corollary, Kendra, to what occurs, right? When Michelle used to say this about paying Steve, she made this joke. She was like, when I wrote that first check, I was like, I am never going to spend this much money again on him. I am never, and I'm going to make sure I get every dime out of him, every dime. And I think at that time we were paying him $25,000 for a year. And she laughed. She's like, I've paid him that 6 times over. And the moment I wrote the check, it was transformative. Before the coaching even began, writing the check for myself was transformative.
Wow.
And I want to be upfront, right? That there will be people who never spend that kind of money, and that's totally okay. Like, it's not wrong for someone not to. And it's not wrong to never charge that, right? Like, I know coaches who are like, I'm really happy with my $5,000 fee, and they don't want to change it. And that's beautiful. We're not here in any way, Amber, myself, Amy, no one's ever going to be like, wow, your fees should be higher, different. Every coach gets to decide, what is my income? What do I want it to look like? And how do I want to spend my time every day? And what's that going to mean for me? And I don't want to pretend to make that up for someone. I know a great coach. She hasn't changed her fees in a long time, and she's really happy with what she's doing. And her fees are probably in the $5,000 to $10,000 range for a year. She earns a really good living. She coaches people one-on-one. She has no interest in groups or anything else. And she has a beautiful practice with beautiful people she serves. And she's happy. And that's what matters.
Right. It's all that matters. Absolutely. Yep. Well, and I think that the big thing for me was I was anchoring my own worth in the pricing, and that energy was totally transferred and projected into onto the client. And then they started anchoring their worth in the pricing. And next thing you know, they're like, well, I don't want to spend $3,500 or dollars or whatever it is. Right. So,
right. No, it's so great. Thank you so much, Kendra.
Appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question, Carolyn. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about how you started this conversation today, or this session, around what do you want for your 2019, and specifically getting to a number. And I'm thinking about, for me, God, year after year after year, I was like, I want to make $100,000. I want to make $100,000. It was like 5 years in a row. I want to make $100,000, and I wouldn't get there. So this might be a great lead into how does a coach get there? How do they work backwards on the day-to-day to
Let's
create
do it.
a 6-figure practice?
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Me? Oh,
I'll answer, and then you're going to answer.
Okay.
I love that question, and I think it's an important one. And I talked about this. Part of this webinar was really inspired by that Facebook post I made, where I saw a coach in just upset and anger who was like, how do these coaches do it? They all say they make 6 figures. And I thought, what a great question, right? Because whether you're asking it out of anger or just out of genuine curiosity, and I wrote a lot about what that looked like for me. And this is where Michelle's line, which I loved, which is, coaching is a profession. It's not a lifestyle. So for me, creating my first 6 figures was really about all day long, sitting at my computer like we all are, inviting people by email, for me, because I like email. Some people love to invite people by phone. I know someone who hand delivered an invitation to someone, like a card, and handed it to them, which is beautiful. And that's one of the things we'll do in the school, is learn, how do you invite someone in a really authentic, heartfelt way to come sit with you? So I was inviting people, as was Michelle. I was talking to people, and my number one job every day was filling my calendar with conversations. The way I knew I had a productive week is I could look at my calendar and it was filled with conversations. It was not filled with the amount of time I spent on social media. Now, I used social media. I would look at Facebook to see what people in my world were up to, because I wanted to know the people in my community. I didn't invite people who were falling apart, although I might if I was called to. I invited people who were talking about things that they were up to. And I thought, I want to help that person do that. That person talked about this project she's working on. I'm going to invite her to come sit with me, to have a container to look at that project. So all day long, I was in the process, and Michelle was in the process of, who do we want to invite? How do we invite someone? And getting people to sit with us all day long. and it was heartfelt, and we were really fine if people sat with us and they went away. Because some people are going to sit with us and not become paid clients, and some people are going to sit with us and become our paid clients. Michelle, coaches would say to her, why do you just keep sitting with people? And Michelle would say, well, what else am I going to do all day long? Like, what else do I have to do? And we're in a profession, by the way, that we're losing the art of sitting with people. Like, let's be clear. Therapists sit with people for 50 minutes. Therapists don't say to someone, come sit with me for 3 hours and let's look at your life. That's an incredible thing to say to someone. And to say, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen. Because we don't know. When two people sit together, we don't know what's going to get created. It's in the unknown. So we can't predict. And that's a beautiful thing. So for me, it looked like all day long. And then bit by bit, Michelle and I, from my carport, as Amy mentioned, someone would say, like, how do I do this with you? How do we keep going? So I also want to say to everybody, it's not a prescription. Okay, in the last 15 minutes, you must say these 5 things. You can, but I know people who I was like, you just serve someone and you really get in there, someone's going to be like, how do we do this? How do I keep coming to you? And you can learn how to do things at the end of the session. Not that's going to get someone to say yes, but there are ways you can move the conversation along. And sometimes you're going to move them along to another conversation. Because the truth is, especially as our fees grow, people are not going to make a significant investment until they've spent a lot of time with you. It's just the truth. I wouldn't. I had a coach the other day say to me, oh, well, I'm spending 30 minutes with people. And I said, what are your fees? And she said, $5,000. I said, I have to be frank with you. I would never at the end of 30 minutes write you a check for $5,000. It's not going to happen. Amber, what did it look like for you finally?
Well, in the beginning, when I wasn't making the money I wanted to make, it looked like, being on social media and writing blogs and trying to grow my list. And I also want to say there's a place for that. I'm not here to poo-poo the online world, because it is a way to serve. But I think this is just my personal take. Don't focus there until you're making 6 figures. Because here's the thing, knowing how to enroll, and the bread and butter of a coaching practice is your individual clientele. And it's like, once that is in place, then you can start to branch out from there. So for me, when I shifted and actually I made $100,000 in the first 6 months of doing the group with you and Michelle, which blew my mind. But it was through having conversations. It was learning how to make heartfelt connections and how to really hear people and hear between the lines. People can say things, but you can get an intuition around that's not the full truth. And if you lean in, there's an opening for a much richer conversation. And I also want to say one more thing, or actually 2 more things. Carolyn talked about 3-hour conversations. Don't leave this call today thinking you now have to offer 3-hour conversations, because you don't.
No.
Right? Carolyn's fees have grown over time. For people to want to make that level of investment, it takes time to nurture and grow the relationship so that people see the value. I just remember the first time they said 90 minutes for a conversation. I was like, screw that. What do you talk about for 90 minutes? I'll do an hour. And so that's where I started. And then it grew to 90 minutes. And then it grew to 2 hours. So there's that. And then I was going to say one other thing. When we say serving, we don't mean sacrificing. See, sometimes I think, especially with women, we have it wired where we just give and give and give to our own depletion. That's not what we're talking about. Because there does come a point where you do stand in your fee and you do stand the boundary of honoring your time. We're not suggesting that you just give discounts all the time or say, let's just keep talking for hours ad nauseum for months and months and months. right? So there is a balance inside of all of this that I just wanted to put out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Amber. One of the things we do a lot in the work that we do with coaches is we assist them in learning the difference between your social self and your professional self. That's a distinction that Steve Chandler introduced in his work as a coach and coach of coaches. And it's a fabulous distinction. And it's an important one, particularly for women in this field. Because women, we're so used to being in social self and being like in, hey, how's your kids and how's your this? And we're and learning how to grow your professional self, from my point of view, is a requirement in this business. That doesn't mean we can't be kind or caring or loving. But one of the things that in the work I've done with coaches, one of my favorite things to do, which I can't wait till when we do this in the school, is we look at our communications. And I remember when I was teaching at the University of Santa Monica, and we were talking about how coaches communicate via email, because that is one of the ways we all communicate. And people brought in samples. And one of the coaches, like, her email was like, hey, sweetheart. And it was signed with like XXXOO ciao. And I was teaching with Steve Chandler and Michelle. And Steve Chandler was just like, you two handle this. And Michelle said, well, one might say that there's a lot of social self in that email. And it was a process of this coach learning, well, how do I stay who I am in my exuberance and in my joy, but not be communicating the same way I'd communicate with my girlfriends? Because it's important, right? Because we are going to have conversations where an exchange of money is going to be made. If someone's going to become our client, an exchange of money is going to be made. And we want to know how to have that portion of the conversation without collapsing into tentativeness and social. And I cannot tell you, and this is not unusual, how many coaches don't handle those parts of the conversation well, because we're nervous and we're awkward and we've never learned how to do it. And people want to be led, particularly in that part of the conversation, right? If someone says, I want to know how to do this with you, it doesn't inspire confidence if we're like, I don't know. Ooh, let me think about that. Like, I hadn't really, and it's natural, right? Like, it's not wrong when we do that in the beginning of our work as a coach. And it's a really important part of our learning. It's really important. I cannot tell you how many coaches I know who have so much of their social self operating that it's getting in the way of them being perceived as strong professionals. It's really important. I want to take another question. So somebody who's got their hand raised, let's take a look. Yeah.
Carolyn, I got a question in the chat. Can I read it to you? Because it's such a great question.
Please.
So this is from Tina Dodds. She said she's having a little challenge with the interruption, so she typed it for me. So I recently signed a client who initially was all in for a 6-month coaching package. And then after connecting with her husband, who's currently the only provider for their family, as my new client is currently building a small business after years of homemaking, chose a 3-month package. As far as commitment is concerned, the value reflecting their commitment. Have you navigated this in terms of working with them and their relationship with their partner and their partner's relationship with the investment?
Wow. Now, Tina, that's a fantastic question. Now, first of all, bravo, because the fact that they went for 3 months is fantastic versus going away entirely, which happens as well. This is a really important conversation because Michelle and I had these conversations so much with women that we were enrolling into our coaching groups for women. We had a lot of women who were had been home for a long time with their children, and their partners were making all the money. And part of navigating that kind of conversation with a potential client, when someone says to me, I need to talk to my husband about this, first of all, I always agree. Absolutely. As you should, because this is not a small decision, not because of the amount of money, but because of how much you're going to transform. They need to know how much you're going to transform. So we want to bring it to what's going to occur inside the coaching, not the amount, because that gets us into affordability, But that being said, when someone says to me, I need to talk to my husband because he's the one who makes all the money, it's a great opportunity to slow it down and to say, would it be helpful if we talk more about that? Would it be helpful to talk about, when you say you want to go talk to your husband, what does that mean? Because what I want to find out is, are they in a dynamic where they think because their partner makes all the money, they get to decide? It's easy in a marriage, whether you're the woman and the man is making all the money or vice versa, to think, well, they make the money, so they get to decide whether or not I can do this, which is completely abdicating all the other things you bring to the partnership. Because we all bring things to our partnership, and there may be phases. I'm in a long marriage. I've been with my husband, gosh, I mean, I think we're closing in on 30 years. We met in college, and there's been phases where I make more money, where he makes more money, and I want to be in a space inside myself where I can help someone determine, are you assuming that because they make all the money, they bring all the value to the partnership? Like, a marriage or a relationship is much more than who makes the money. So I want to assist any woman or man in going, so have you been thinking you need their permission versus I want to ask for your support in something that's really important to me? Because I know women who operate as if it's not even their money. Like, it's not our money, it's their money. And that's an incredible thing to help someone undo. It's an important conversation if someone wants help with it. So we would always say, would it be helpful to talk about this conversation you're going to have with your partner? Would it be useful? Fine if no. And I've had people be like, no, I got this. And I'm like, great. But I have people who are like, it would be so helpful. And I'll say, well, do you want us, let's set up another time where we really slow down and talk about this conversation with your husband. And really look at, where do you want to come from inside in that conversation? Because that's the key. I don't want to be in a situation with my husband going like, oh, please, honey, will you let me do this? Will you let me? I don't want to do that, because that doesn't feel like I'm an empowered equal partner. So if someone's not coming from that, it's helpful to help them see that. So Tina, I love that question. Now I want to be respectful of time. We're at 1:27, and there are many of you who are like, I'm in for an hour and I'm out. So I want to let you know two things, and I'm going to stay on the call, as is Amber, as is Amy. We're willing to be here for another at least 20 minutes if people want to stay and ask more questions, so you've got us. But for those of you who are going to go, I want to tell you two things. If you did not get a question answered, email me. Email me. Do not be social self and think, oh, I don't want to bother Carolyn. Oh, I feel funny. This is an opportunity to get your professional question answered. So email me and we will get you an answer. It's really important that you do that. Number two, Steve Chandler, who's a faculty member at my school, he has a number of books, but he said to me, look, anyone who wants one of my books, there's a book I want to send them. So if you want Steve Chandler's book right now, send me an email with your address and you're going to get his book. So his book is fabulous.
The title of it is Right Now.
Right Now. Yes. Thank you. And then also I'm writing a book with Michelle Bauman, who had started writing a book before she passed. And if you want, I want to send you a chapter of that book. So you can ask for Steve's book. You can ask for my book. My book, the chapter will be emailed to you. Steve Chandler's book will actually come in the mail. And finally, if you have questions about the school or you want to talk about the school, if you're thinking, would I want to do that? Email and you will talk with me or Amber. We are committed to making sure anyone who wants to talk about the school gets a conversation, because we're starting on January 24th. It's so exciting, and we can't take everybody. You know, we have limited space, but we do have space available for, I don't know, maybe given how many people are on the call, maybe we can still take, I don't know, I'm not great at math other than coaching math. We could probably still take, I don't know, less than a third, but we could take some of you if you want. So if you want, don't hesitate. Get your questions answered. So I want to open it up again because we're going to give more time. Who has a question? Like, who wants to get something answered?
Well, Kendra wrote in the chat, she said, Ray's social self. I assume that that is true for using emojis on social media as well, but she says on social media.
Well, I mean, Amber, why don't you answer that and then I'll answer my answer.
Well, my take on emojis are, it's all about the nature of the relationship. See, in that, I'm talking about even in emails. I may, on occasion, use an emoji, but the way that I know the person, that it's just part of the nature of the relationship. It's more friendly, it's more social. If it's a professional tone, if it's an executive, or, you know, I'm not going to be emojiing my face off. And then as far as social media, I think that depends on how you want to be perceived. I may throw in an emoji every now and then on a post, depending. But if there's a strong point that I really want to take a stand for, I'm not going to emoji it. That's just my take.
I love that question. Anyone who participated in the coaching program at USM knows that I went on an anti-emoji spiel with the students. In fact, so much so that on the private Facebook page, for like days, people would just put in 8 million emojis to just kid around. So I have softened my stance slightly. So here's the deal. Many of the people who are participating on this webinar, including myself, do corporate work. So I go in and I do leadership trainings in corporate settings. Amy Ruby does that. A number of people in the school do kinds of corporate work. I do not use emojis in any communication in my corporate work. There is really no context I can think of, even if I was coaching an individual executive, and I do, that I would use an emoji. I won't say never, but I will say that in an individual coaching relationship where somebody was already my client, it's possible that I might use an emoji in an email for some reason. I would probably still never use it in an enrollment situation. Now that's just me, because emojis by the nature of them are social self. They are. That's what's fun about them. I used to joke with Steve, who, you know, has been my coach for close to 15 years, that eventually, like, maybe that's what all coaching will be. Like, people will just send emojis to each other. But I really want to support coaches in this profession, right? We are all lifting up this profession. And it's a new profession. It's like more and more coaches are coming every day. So all of us learning how to be strong professionals is important. And I think emojis used in coaching tend to put the profession in a different context. So that's what I'm going to say. And everyone gets to decide for themselves. That's what's so fun about this profession. That's just my point of view. There are probably many six-figure coaches that happily use emojis.
Like Steve Chandler.
Like Steve Chandler. But I don't know that Steve Chandler uses them when he's in enrollment mode.
Or for corporate. I doubt
he's ever used one in a corporate setting. All right, so who else is...
Wait, so I want to Sherry said this in the comments. This goes back to our original conversation where you were talking about accountants. And she said, I can speak to that as an accountant. No, meaning they don't have periods of doubt and fear. And then she said, I have never been so unsure of myself as I am as a coach.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah. Listen, Sherry, I admire you and I hear you. I hear you. Like, look, this is a courageous profession in many ways. It's like not because you have to have, 8 million tons of courage to grow a business, because you don't. But it takes courage to be willing to sit across from people and attempt to assist them in their lives. It's very intimate. The kind of coaching, whether you're going to do one-on-one or groups or even the coaches I know who are doing online things like Amber, it's like they're talking about intimate things. So I admire someone who's honest about, like, ooh, I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I have self-doubt. it's a milestone in a coach's life to have doubt at different phases of their career, by the way. And I've had it all along at different points. Before I started doing my leadership trainings, I just did something in the last year where literally I was up for almost 24 hours straight before I went and did it. And I was like, oh my God, can I do this? I was in a room with 10 corporate executives, 8 of which were male, leading a meeting with them. And for whatever reason, it just completely hooked me. And I was in so much fear. Now, I know how to work with myself. That's part of it. It didn't make me not go, and it didn't make me not serve them well. But I acknowledge, like, I remember, I mean, literally, I was at a hotel. I don't even think I slept. I was like awake so much. And then the morning came and I was like, let's go do this. And it went really well, by the way. But it's human. We're humans. And sharing that with all of you and with your clients, that's what makes this profession amazing. We can use what happens in service to our clients.
There's a great question from Sasha. She says, hi, I have a question too. Did you two, Amber and Carolyn, face the fear, who has $10,000 to $20,000 to spend on coaching? That's the thought that stops me from raising my fees. Like, I literally won't find a person who has that to spend unless they are business people growing businesses.
Well, I'll answer it, and then Amber, you can. I think that's a reasonable question, because I do think, look, Steve Chandler was always very clear with Michelle and I. When you have a background in sales or whatever, consulting, look, there is something to be said about the fact that, is someone going to pay me $100,000 to work on their business versus working on who they are as a mom? Now, it's possible someone might say, I want to spend $100,000 to work on who I am as a mom. And there is something to be said, right? Like, when we can assist someone in growing their business or handling something new in their business that's tangible, like meaning I'm going to help them make more money, or I'm going to help them work on on a book and creating a book, because I've written books. There's something to be said for that, Sasha. So I don't want to be like, people will pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for the intangible inner work. Some will. I would never say if someone wouldn't spend $100,000 to become stronger in who they are as a mom, or to become more connected to who they are as a spiritual being, having a human experience. There are people who will. And there is a relationship between fees and people wanting to achieve tangible things. Now, the coaching work I do and the coaching work Amber does and Amy and many of the coaches I know, they're really experienced in the inner work. That's what their training is. They've done enormous amounts of inner work with themselves. And some of those people also have ability on the external, like Amber. She knows how to help a coach grow their business. She knows how to help other people grow their businesses. So every coach is going to have to decide, right, like what their fees are in relationship to the kind of work they do.
You know, I'll speak to that too. Michelle, I remember once shared with me that for business owners and coaches, she had a certain rate.
Right.
I think it was at that time like $40,000 for a year. But then, you know, regular people not focused on their business, it was $30,000 or something like that. So that's a suggestion, right? You could have different fees depending upon, just because there is also, I would say this too, there is more work involved when you're helping someone grow their business.
Yep.
At least the way that Carolyn and I and Amy do it. Because life and business are connected, and so there is an element of both in that coaching package. Yeah.
I so appreciate you saying that, Amber. I think that's an important thing to talk about for a couple minutes, is that for coaches, especially for coaches, many coaches kind of want tactical, like, how do I do this? How do I grow my business? And I do a lot of that. We're going to do a lot of that in the school. But there's also a really important inner component that comes with that. It's like, as I was listening to the audio of Michelle last night, she said, and I obviously agree, if I only help a coach know how to have a conversation, I'm not really doing my job, because there's so much that goes on inside. It's like where we're residing inside when we're in a conversation is as important, if not more important, than what we say. And people can feel it. So it's like the container that we create when someone talks to us is important and profound. I love this sentence, which really comes out of my University of Santa Monica and education. The true transformative agent is love. It's love. And no skill, no tool can replace that. So if a coach does not know how to be loving with themselves, if they're someone who is critical and harsh and unkind to themselves, that's going to translate. It will come through in their energy and their words with people. So it's as important to be able to relate to yourself in a certain way so that that gets communicated to your clients. Do we have other questions, Amy or Amber, that people are wanting?
Well, I just want to let you know that Tina responded back on your question. She said, yes, we had the conversation and I had her do an exercise around this, and her shift to 3 months came after all that.
Nice work, Tina. Way to go. Who else? If you want to raise your hand or ask a question in the chat, I'm seeing if anyone's got their hand raised. I realize it's rocket science to figure out how to raise your hand.
Erin McLean has sorry. Did someone raise their hand?
Caroline, I want to ask you something about the school.
Please. Hey, you.
So, hi. So, it will be part of the coaching school, help me refine and clarify what I am offering, because
yes.
I have a lot of background and I've been doing this for so many years, but I go kind of burnt out, and for the last years I've been stepping back and just now I wanted just to clarify what I really, 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 really want to do.
I so appreciate that question. Yes, I want to answer that. We have, Erin, I love that question. So for everyone, I know Erin. She's, besides being a fantastic coach and someone who's been in this industry a long, long time, she's also a fellow parent at my daughter's school. So I'm so excited to have you here. Yes, we have coaches who are in the school that are asking really the same question, Erin. Like there's a coach I'm thinking of, she's been in this work a long time. And the question I kept asking her, and the question she's really coming in with is, what would bring you joy now? What's going to bring you joy and light you up in this work? And that's a question we all need to answer, right? Because that's the only question. Like the question Michelle and I always said to ourselves and each other, what would be fun this year? What would be fun to do? And it seems so silly, right? People are like, that's your question? That's the rocket science you have to offer us, Carolyn? Seriously? But what else could be better? Like, what would be fun for you? How do you think this school was birthed? I was like, what would be fun? Oh my God, it'd be so fun to start a school. So that's my question for you. And that's the question that I'm really going to invite all the coaches to ask. Like, this is not about I should write a book or I should do this. I'm writing a book now. I never planned on writing a book. Michelle was the one who was going to write a book. I never even was going to write. And I write so much now because that's what I'm called to do. And that's what I invite you into, Erin. It's like, what's going to bring you joy? What's going to light you up? And to really spend some time with that. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about in the first class. Let's drop all the have-tos. Let's drop all the, it would be good for my business. Let's drop all of that and really be like, what would bring me joy in my work? What would be fun for me?
Good, thank you.
You're so welcome. Somebody else, right?
Yes.
I have a question.
Oh, someone else just unmuted themselves too. Yeah. There's a question in the chat, but go ahead.
It's going crazy. People are muting themselves. They're just taking over. Go for it.
Hi, this is Martin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Awesome call. And hi, Amber.
Hi.
So my question is regarding professional and social self. So in my practice as a wellness coach, I experience a lot of sessions out in the world at restaurants with clients because I want them to have an experience of healthy eating and menu and all kinds of stuff. So I find it a fine line between professional and social self. I try my best to stay in my professional self. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts about it, because sometimes it is, even sometimes when I go to New York, I'm meeting clients out in a restaurant or taking them out to eat or something like that. Sometimes I've never met them and then we have a meal.
So first of all, I love that, right? Like, it's a great question because, right, what you're up to, it's important, right? Like, for you, being in a situation where you can have a meal and talk about food is part of the work. I have a question for you. Have you listened to the audio Professional Self versus Social Self yet?
By Steve Chandler?
Yes.
Probably along the journey with you and Michelle, though maybe it would help to re-listen to it.
I would recommend you re-listen, and anyone who wants that audio, that's another thing we can send you. It's a fabulous audio. And what I want to say to you now about that is, look, you're right. You're going to have more nuance inside for how to navigate a restaurant meal with a potential client or a client. And that's a line that you're going to be kind of on the edge of in those conversations. So part of it is you're going to need to practice, right? Like, I'm sure you've had some already where you're like, oh, wow, that went way into social self.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh my God, I have food in my teeth. They have food in their teeth. What do we do? But the the other thing I want to say to you about that is that you could create context at the beginning of the meal. So you could say to the person, now look, this is an unusual thing. You and I are about to have a meal together. And in the work that I do, having a conversation around food and looking at a menu together is part of the work. So you're going to create context. Like, I'm a professional coach in wellness. So this is going to seem strange because we're going to have a professional conversation in a restaurant while people are wandering around giving us food. So I would invite you to come up with, what do you want to say at the beginning of that to help establish the tone?
Okay, I hear you. And also in those conversations, I also get into stuff that's coming up for them in their lives. Sometimes it's not just around food. It can be a coaching session within a coaching session at a restaurant. So,
right.
So just create a framework in the beginning.
Yeah, and one thing I would say to you, though, is given that stuff comes up, I have to imagine that you're going to need to get it out of the restaurant into a private space at a future time. So in other words, as the conversation gets deeper, the quality of your coaching is only going to go so far in a restaurant because of the nature of it. So that's going to happen. And maybe that's something you say at the beginning. Maybe you say, and I'm talking out loud, I don't know that this is what you should say, but maybe it's like, look, we're going to talk a lot today and we're going to be in an unusual situation. However, we're going to see at the end whether or not we want to have a future conversation in a more private setting.
Okay.
I would play with that.
Yeah, and actually, this all makes sense. And I just realized I was doing a coaching call yesterday with a client that I've worked with in the past. She's in New York and she has a second home in Florida, and I'm going to be in Florida next week when she's there. And it was like, hey, let's get together. I'll be there with somebody and let's, have dinner. And I worked with her husband before. And so we have a date on the calendar. And then last night I was like, wow, we're smack in the middle of a 4-month coaching session. And I'm thinking to myself, is this a good idea to see her? Or is it too much social? You know, how do I deal with this? How do I backtrack now? Like, so that's where this started to come up.
Right. And I think an answer to that is, if you're wondering if it's too much social, my experience is maybe it is. I don't know, right? Like if I'm going to travel and I'm going to happen to see my client, I don't generally want to have social experiences with my current clients. I want to go and be like, let's meet somewhere and do a really deep session.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, you know what, I want to see you, and I want to see you in a setting where we can get some good work done.
Okay. Yeah. So that gave me the thought, maybe just meet with her instead of doing a social outing.
Right. Because your
To see her in
job,
person.
if you're already coaching her, you're responsible for the quality of the container.
Right.
And my experience is when I do social things with a current client, not always, but it can weaken the container.
That's the second thought I was having last night. So this is really helpful.
I'm so
Thank
glad.
you.
I want to comment on something, and then we'll take one more question. This is from Terry Chase, who's a USM grad, who said she had to hop off, but I want to clarify this. She said, one thing I got out of today is at least one focused conversation per week. So Terry and all the coaches, I'm going to lovingly challenge you. If you want to grow your business and you want to either pass 6 figures or go further, it's going to take a lot more than one conversation a week. And I really want you to get this. When I was growing my practice super actively in the beginning, and Michelle, we were having 5 or 6 conversations a week.
Me too.
Yep. Like this is like called, if you're sincere and you want to grow a full-time practice, that's what it's going to take. You won't grow a full-time practice in one conversation a week. You just won't, because not every conversation is going to turn into a paying client. So I want to give context for that. And that's something we're going to be playing a great game at the school. I know Amber's so excited about this. I have a game I love to play with coaches, and it's called Show Me Your Calendar. And it's not like you get to plan ahead. I'm going to trick you, and I'm going to be like, I want to see your calendar. So you can't change the calendar. You can't be like, oh, wait, let me put in some conversations. It's like your calendar is a real close-up look at how you're doing in your business.
And Terry wrote back, said, I'm hearing you and I get it, more than one.
There you go, Terry. Love it. All right. So let's take one more question.
Wait, there are 2 in the chat that I think could be handled pretty quickly.
All right.
So Aaron McLean says, I have a question. Do you, Carolyn, Amy, whoever, really love corporate clients, or you just take them because it's where you can make the money?
Okay. Let me answer. And then Amy will answer. I love corporate clients. They're great people. They're just people. They're not bad. They have lives. They have hurts and hopes and dreams. Like, I love when I get to go and do these leadership trainings with women. I love it. So they're not secretly people I dislike. I don't despise them, but just like their money. They're all people. Now, corporate work's not for everybody. So it's not a requirement. Like, it's not like, oh, corporate is where the money is. Corporate has its own complexities and its own nuances, and some people love it and some people don't. All right, Amy, you answer.
I mean, I love working with corporate clients. It actually came from one of my clients. They do leadership trainings and they add on coaching afterwards. So a part of it is I get a lot of people that I haven't had invited to come sit with me. It's like I'm kind of blindly led to them. But when we start really doing the work, it's transformational for these people to really have somebody hear them for the first time, for them to have a safe place to talk to. I just love and adore them. It's something that I feel has become a calling for me to work more in corporate, because there can be a lot of, I don't want to say negativity, but there's this thing like corporate America. There's no soul. And these people are rocking around with a lot of soul on their sleeves, and they just don't know how to be themselves. It's been transformational. And you do make good money working and coaching corporate, but it's more the people I just love and adore because they're hungry for this work.
And by the way, it's not a requirement. So in other words, I want to be clear. Many coaches are like, I have to get corporate to make money. I didn't work in corporate for years. And now I do a lot more of it and I love it. But I do it because, like Amy, it's important to me to help people grow in their leadership in corporate America. I'm really committed both in the coaching profession and in corporate America to help women grow in their leadership, grow in their strength of heart, grow in their ability to make heart-centered decision-making, heart-centered decisions, and grow in their ability to lead and to drop the attachment to being liked. Coaches really want to be liked a lot, and that's not our job all the time. In fact, if we're really doing our job, sometimes our clients won't like us. And corporate is not a requirement to earn a good living. No. It's just not.
It's a part of my business. It's not the entire part of my business. So.
And I just want to make a comment about Amy Ruby, because I can. Amy Ruby is one of the greatest examples of someone who came to the University of Santa Monica coaching program, and she literally did everything we said. She came to the year that Stephen McGee and I taught. Stephen McGee will be teaching at my school. And Amy was like, I will do everything they say. She didn't question it. She didn't, even if she felt resistance, she didn't pay attention. She did it. And Amy is an incredible example of someone who very recently went from not a six-figure coach to way beyond that. And
I had no job when I started the coaching program. Like, I had zero income coming in, and I need to make money. My husband and I both need to work. I started off at zero. By month 3, I billed $23,000 in business, and it just kept growing from there. And I did literally everything they said, because I'm like, these are people who I want to learn from, people who have been able to do this year after year after year. And it's not people who are just talking, moving their mouths. It's people who are doing it and walking their talk. So I just broke, after 2 years of starting my own business, over $200,000, which I've never made. The most I ever made in my entire life was $50,000 a year. And
I mean, it's extraordinary. And it's not like she's special, but she's not special.
No.
She just did the work. Because, one of the things I think that's really important to say before we complete is that in many ways, the profession of coaching is a get up and go to work kind of job. See, the challenge with this profession, as much as I love it, is that we have enormous freedom. We create our days. Nobody's like, it's not like I'm working at Starbucks and I have a boss who's like, hey, go make the coffee. Go make that person a latte. Go make a juniper latte, which I don't even know what those are anymore, but we don't have anybody telling us. This is a profession that is really self-directed, and it requires someone who's really willing to call themselves into work every day, even when they don't want to. And even without a boss saying, go make some phone calls, go send some emails. So I share that because there's a lot of glamour around this profession that is, from my point of view, not accurate. It's not. I work hard and I love what I do. And the people who come and teach at my school work really hard and they love what they do. Devin Bandashire is one of the hardest working coaches I know. That guy gets up, he does his morning rituals, and he is out there serving people all day long. That's what this profession offers us. You can have a great part-time practice too, but it's this thing of like, I'm going to work 2 hours a week and then be at the beach. I haven't experienced that. And I travel, I do great trips with my family. I live the life I want. And I've created that in connection with my own source. And I've worked for it. And so I want to invite all of us to know that this is a profession. It's beautiful. You can grow. You can create the kind of life you want. And it's a time-in profession. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's like, we're here to serve people. So I just want to say, bravo to all of you. If I didn't handle something you wanted from this call, or if Amber didn't email us and be like, hey, you didn't do this, you better do this, because that's what I came for. We want to get what you want handled. So please, if you want Steve Chandler's book, send us your email address and your address, your physical address. If you want the ebook, the chapter from I'm working on with Michelle, let me know that. And more importantly, if you have a question about your practice, about the profession, or about the school, don't hesitate, don't be shy, and just know we are rooting for you no matter what. If we never see you again, we wish you well in this amazing profession, and know that we want you to succeed. Anything else you want to say, Amber and Amy?
Oh, I just was going to ask, do you think we could make it easier by sending an email to them saying, if you have questions, respond back to this. Don't forget to email us back your address, because there's some significant things that you're offering, and I don't want people to miss. So if we can make it easy.
Yep. We will be sending out the replay link by the end of later tonight. So within 24 hours, we'll be sending a replay. We can put it in there. I also posted Carolyn's email in the chat, so people could write that down, but we will definitely support any of you. I know that maybe we didn't get to 1 or 2 questions. That's a great way. Please email Carolyn privately. We'll also put Amber's email in the email.
Thank you.
Please don't let that hang out there.
Look, the way you get to success, in my experience, it's not a one-man show. It's not just you by yourself doing all you know. Like, I did that for a really long time. I was like, I don't have money for a coach. And that's how I landed in $44,000 in credit card debt. Right? When that started to shift, when I started to get support, when I started to reach out to people who were further along and then listen to their advice or their feedback and do it. So if you have questions, ask.
And just know that I think that's a great way to end it, Amber. You're not in this alone. You don't have to be. In fact, the best coaches I know make sure that they get coaching in some form or another. So it doesn't have to be us. It does not have to be the CFJ Coaching Success School. But if you haven't had the experience of being coached by someone in your business, go find someone who you feel like they have what I want, and go get it. And again, happy 2019, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for being here.